My father and his wife charged me rent at 15 while starving me, but when I found my mother's number and told her they were stealing $30,000 in child support, the judge made them return everything and exposed them as abusers in court. I'm 17 now. I'm in my senior year of high school. And honestly, I need to tell this story because for a long time I felt like nobody would believe me if I talked about what I went through with my dad and his wife. The thing is that when I was 9, my parents got divorced. You know, the typical drama of they didn't get along anymore and all that. And my dad ended up getting custody of me because at that time my mom was going through financial problems and the judge decided it was better for me to live with him. I don't remember much from the first months after the divorce. I guess I was in shock or something, but what I do remember perfectly is that things started getting weird really fast. My dad worked all the time, or at least that's what he said, and I stayed alone in the house most days. At first I thought it was normal, like, okay, my dad has to work to pay for things. I get it. But after a while, I realized something was wrong, because there was never any food in the house. And when I say never, I mean never. I'd open the fridge and literally there were only condiments, like ketchup and mayo, and maybe a beer or two that were my dad's. The pantry was just as empty. Sometimes there was a box of cereal that lasted weeks because I tried to ration it so it would last. I was like 10, 11 years old back then, and I already knew how to cook basic things because my mom had taught me before the divorce. But how was I supposed to cook if there was nothing to cook? I started skipping meals. Like I'd have breakfast at school because they gave free breakfasts for kids who qualified, and I'd have lunch at school too. But when I got home in the afternoons, there was nothing. I'd tell my dad, hey, there's no food, and he always told me the same thing. Oh yeah, I'm going to the supermarket this weekend, but he never went. Or he'd go and buy stuff for himself, like frozen food that he'd put his name on with a marker so I'd know I couldn't touch it. Can you believe it? My own father, marking his food so I wouldn't eat it. Sometimes my friends would invite me to their houses after school, and I'd accept not because I wanted to socialize that much, but because I knew my friend's mom was going to offer me something to eat and I could fill up a little. Things continued like that for years, literal years, and I got used to being hungry all the time. I started looking for jobs I could do, like I'd mow neighbors' lawns or help carry stuff when someone was moving. Anything to earn some money so I could buy at least a sandwich or a bag of chips. My dad never asked me how I was doing, if I needed anything. Nothing. He'd come home from work, lock himself in his room with his computer and his beers, and I was practically invisible to him. I tried not to bother him because the few times I asked him for help or asked him something, he'd get angry and yell at me to leave him alone, that he'd worked all day and deserved to rest. When I turned 15, I got a job at a convenience store. That was like 3 blocks from the house. Technically, I wasn't old enough to work many hours, but the owner was kind of flexible with the rules, I guess, and he let me work after school and on weekends. I earned like minimum wage. It wasn't much, but for me it was everything because I could finally buy food without having to ask my dad for anything. I bought cheap stuff, obviously, like instant ramen, bread, peanut butter, whatever I could stretch, and I kept everything in my room, because if I left it in the kitchen, my dad would eat it and then get mad at me for spending money on food when, according to him, there was food in the house. Spoiler, there wasn't. Everything got worse when my dad married Denise. He didn't even tell me he was getting married. I mean, one day I came home from school and there was a woman in the house and my dad told me, oh yeah, this is Denise. We got married over the weekend. Just like that, casual. I was 15 and a half at that point and I was like, what? And you weren't going to tell me? I wasn't going to meet her before, but I didn't say anything because I'd already learned that talking to my dad was useless. Denise moved in immediately, and from day one, it was clear that she was going to make the rules in that house. Denise was like 38 years old, I think. She worked in some sales or marketing thing, and she had that I'm better than you attitude that threw me off from the beginning. The first few weeks, she was kind of nice, like trying to pretend she cared, asking me how I was doing in school and stuff like that, but then she started showing her true personality. One day I came home from work. I had my envelope with the week's pay, like $180 or something because I'd worked quite a few hours, and Denise was in the kitchen. She saw me and told me, we need to talk about your situation here. And I was like, my situation? What are you talking about? Turns out Denise had decided I had to pay her rent. Rent. At 15 years old, she told me, "You live here, you use electricity, you use water, it's fair that you contribute, and I want half of what you earn each week." Half. I was shocked. Like, are you serious? I told her, "I'm a minor, I don't have to pay rent, and besides, I barely have enough to buy my food." And she told me, "Your father and I have talked about this and we agree. If you want to keep living here, you're going to pay." I went to my dad hoping he'd defend me, tell her she was crazy, but he just told me, "Denise is right. It's fair that you cooperate." And I realized in that moment that my dad was a coward, who was more afraid of his wife than he loved his son. I started giving her half my paycheck every week. I had no choice. Where else was I going to go? My mom lived in another state. I hadn't talked to her in years because my dad always told me she had abandoned us and didn't care about us. And I believed him because I was a kid and didn't know my dad was lying. So I gave Denise the money and tried to stretch the OTC, other half as much as I could, but it was almost impossible. I stopped saving for things I needed, like new clothes or shoes, because everything I earned went to basic food and the damn rent I paid Denise. But wait, it gets worse. Denise didn't just charge me rent, she also decided I was the house servant. She'd wake me up at 6 in the morning so I'd clean the kitchen before going to school. I had to wash all the dishes, sweep, mop, and if I didn't do it perfectly, she'd yell at me and make me repeat it. On weekends, she made me clean the whole house, the bathrooms, the bedrooms, the living room, vacuum, dust, everything. While I cleaned, she and my dad would stay watching TV or go out to do things, and I'd think all the time, I'm paying rent, and I also have to be the maid of this house. Seriously? I asked my dad one day, "Why do I have to do everything if they also live here?" And he told me, "Because you live in my house and you follow my rules, and if you don't like it, you can leave." There were days when I'd come home from school, go straight to work 5 or 6 hours, get home like at 10 at night exhausted and hungry, and Denise would be waiting for me with a list of things I had to clean before going to sleep, and I couldn't refuse because if I refused, my dad would get angry and threaten to kick me out. My grades started dropping because I didn't have time to do homework. I'd get home so tired that I'd fall asleep with my clothes on, and I'd wake up at 6 in the morning to start all over again. What finally broke me was when Denise stole from me. I had been saving the tips they gave me at the store. I kept them in an envelope in my room. It was like $150 I'd been saving for months because I wanted to buy myself new shoes. The ones I had were broken, literally had holes in the soles and water would get in when it rained, but they were the only ones I had and I urgently needed new ones. One day I came home from work and went to my room, and the envelope wasn't there. I looked everywhere, like lifting the mattress, checking drawers, thinking that maybe I'd moved it and forgotten where I put it, but nothing. I knew someone had taken it. I confronted Denise because she was the only one who had been in the house that day. I told her, "Did you take money from my room?" And she looked at me with that fake innocent face and told me, "I don't know what you're talking about. Maybe you lost it." But I knew it had been her. I knew by the way she looked at me, with that little smile that told me I can do whatever I want and you can't do anything to me. I told her, "I need that money. It's my tips. It took me months to save it," and she just shrugged and left. I went to my dad again, told him what happened, told him, "Dad, please help me get my money back." And you know what he did? He told me to stop accusing Denise without proof, that I probably lost it and wanted to blame someone else. That night, I cried for the first time in years. I felt so powerless, so alone, so lost. I was 16 years old, working like an adult, paying rent, cleaning the whole house, and I couldn't even have my own savings safe in my own room. I started thinking about options. Like, what can I do? Can I leave? Where would I go? I didn't know anyone who could help me. I had no family nearby, and my mom was practically a stranger to me at that point. But then something happened that changed everything. I was at work one day and I found an old phone card in my backpack, one of those prepaid ones you buy at stores, and I remembered I had my mom's number, saved on a piece of paper I'd found years ago, among my things when we moved. I don't know why I'd kept it. I guess some part of me knew that maybe someday I'd need it. That night, after Denise and my dad fell asleep, I went out to the backyard and called my mom. I hadn't talked to her in like 6 years. She answered after several rings, and when I told her mom, "It's Ryan," she was silent for a moment, and then started crying. She asked me how I was, where I was, why I was calling so late, and I didn't even know where to start. I told her everything, literally everything, from the lack of food to Denise stealing from me, and my mom got angry in a way I'd never heard her. She told me, "Ryan, why didn't you call me before? Why didn't you tell me anything?" And I told her because Dad told me, "You didn't want to know about us, that you'd abandoned us." My mom explained to me that was a lie. She told me she'd been fighting for me since the divorce, that they'd denied her custody because at that time she didn't have stable work and my dad had a better lawyer, but that she'd never stopped trying to see me. She told me my dad had blocked every attempt, that he wouldn't let her talk to me on the phone, that when she sent letters, my dad would throw them away without giving them to me. And the biggest bomb was when she told me that she'd been sending child support payments to my dad all this time, a month, religiously, like $800 for my food, clothes, school, whatever I needed. I froze when she told me that. $800 a month for years, and I'd been starving, paying rent to my dad with my own money, without decent clothes, without anything. I asked her, "Are you sure? Have you really been sending money?" And she told me, "Yes, I have all the receipts, all the transfers, I can prove it." I didn't know whether to laugh or cry or scream. I just knew my dad was worse than I thought, that he wasn't just negligent, but he was a thief who was stealing my childhood and the money my mom sent for me. My mom told me she was going to hire a lawyer, that she was going to fight for me again, and that this time she wasn't going to stop until she got me out of that house. I told her, "Yes, please help me." I couldn't take it anymore. We kept talking on the phone in secret over the next few weeks. My mom told me she was gathering evidence, talking to lawyers, preparing everything. She asked me to start documenting things too, to save any proof I had of what was happening. I started taking pictures of the empty fridge, the empty pantry. I saved receipts for everything I bought. I wrote in a notebook every time Denise made me clean or yelled at me. I noted every time I gave her rent money. I also wrote something like a resignation letter, detailing everything I'd lived through. I don't know why. I guess I felt I needed to have everything in writing just in case. I kept it all in my work backpack where I knew nobody would find it. Like 2 months after I started talking to my mom, the day came when my dad received the legal papers. I was in the house when the guy knocked on the door and gave him the envelope, and my dad's face when he opened it and started reading was something I'll never forget. He turned red, started yelling, "What is this? Your mom is suing me? You told her to sue me?" I was in the living room, and I told him, "Yes. I told her everything you've done." And he yelled at me that I was ungrateful, that after everything he'd done for me, I betrayed him like this. Denise came out of the bedroom asking what was happening, and when my dad explained, she looked at me with so much hate that I thought she was going to hit me. She told me, "You're trash, a liar, your dad has given you everything, and this is how you repay him." I told her everything. Everything like what? Hunger? Exploitation? Theft? You've treated me like trash, and now you play the victims. My dad yelled at me to go to my room and stay there, and I obeyed because I didn't want things to get physical. The legal process took like 3 months. My mom hired a good lawyer who presented all the evidence of the child support payments my dad never used on me, plus all the documentation I'd compiled. We had a hearing in court where I had to testify about everything that happened. It was hard, like having to tell a judge and a room full of strangers that my dad let me starve while he spent my mom's money on who knows what, that his wife stole from me and exploited me, that I had to work to survive at 15 years old. But I did it. I told everything, showed the photos, the receipts, my letter, everything. My dad and Denise tried to defend themselves, saying I was lying, that I was a rebellious teenager making things up. But when my mom's lawyer showed the bank statements, proving my dad had been receiving money and not using it on me, and when they showed the photos of the empty fridge with dates, and the receipts for everything I had to buy with my own money, the judge got angry. He asked my dad directly, "Sir, where is the child support money you've received for years?" And my dad didn't know what to say. He started stuttering and giving excuses that he used it on the house, on bills, But the lawyer proved my dad had a new truck, that he'd gone on vacation, that he'd spent the money on himself and not on me. The judge ruled in my mom's favor. He gave her full custody of me, ordered my dad to return all the child support payments he didn't use appropriately, which was like $30,000 or something, and basically told him he was a negligent and abusive father. They also put a temporary restraining order so Denise couldn't come near me, because the judge considered her behavior abusive too. I moved in with my mom a week after the hearing. She lived in a small but clean apartment in another state. She worked as an administrative assistant and didn't earn much, but it was enough. When I got there and opened the fridge, and it was full of food, real food, I started crying. I know it sounds silly, but that image of a full fridge broke me in a way I can't explain, like all the years of hunger finally caught up with me all at once. My mom hugged me and told me everything was going to be okay now, that I'd never have to worry about food or money or anything again, that I just had to be a normal teenager and finish school. She enrolled me in a new school where nobody knew me and I could start over. I quit my job because my mom told me I didn't have to work anymore, that my only responsibility was to study and recover my lost childhood. It's been like 10 months since I moved in with my mom, and honestly, my life is unrecognizable compared to how it was before. My grades improved a lot. I have real friends. I sleep enough. I eat 3 times a day every day, and my mom never asks me for money or makes me feel like I'm a burden. I have my own room that's full of my stuff and nobody enters without permission. I have new clothes, shoes without holes, and I'm even saving again, but this time for college, not to survive. I haven't talked to my dad since the day I left his house. He tried calling me a few times at first, but I never answered, and eventually, he stopped trying. My mom says he finally started paying her what he owes in installments, obviously fighting every step of the way, but at least he's paying. Denise and him are still together from what I know, I guess they deserve each other. Sometimes I think about what my life would have been like if I'd found my mom's phone number earlier, if I'd had the courage to call her when I was 12 or 13, instead of waiting until I was 16. Maybe I would have saved myself some years of suffering. I don't know. But I also know things happen when they're supposed to happen, and what's important is that I finally got out of there, and now I'm in a place where they love me and really care for me. Next year, I'm graduating high school, and I want to study something related to social work or law, help other kids who are going through situations similar to mine. I feel like if I can use my horrible experience to do something good, then maybe it was all worth it in the end. You know what I mean?